fact, over there you can see a destroying model of the Fuji project where we are dealing with this idea of natural ventilation. And we are doing, in this case, we are doing some metallic structure and some kind of structure that could allow the natural ventilation. Yeah, this is like this. But then we upgrade this version to this other project in which in this case, we're working with some parametric structure where the same structure could be inverted and could generate some pillars and some roof that should promote also this natural ventilation and the natural lighting inside the building. So that means that we have been producing an evolution from this project we did in Taiwan to this other project we did in Vinaroz near the sea. Here you can see some models of the umbrellas that we built. And in this case, we had pleasure also working with some parametric geometry, only using one piece that could be a repeat and could be changed in order to produce all this structure. In Iran, we are working now in another project following this principle. And we have been working also in some other tree structures like this where we are trying to build like a structure like this, a structure like this that are more like generating volumes. In this case, we are using metallic plates that we can manipulate. But in fact, in 30 years ago, this will be like concrete building. No? So based on these metallic plates, we are doing this kind of a structure where also the nature will be growing from. The micro cost projects, in fact, it's a very clear situation about this idea of the beauty of the micro scale and how horrible can be one place in the macro scale. So, because we were learning from the nature and we were looking for some fractal geometry, we start to see, to think about the places not only in one simple scale, but in a multi-scale. Sometimes when we go to the places, we take rocks and then we draw and we study the places in the micro scale. And in this case, we decide that instead to make like a kind of a strong architectural statement on that rocks, what we should be doing is to make some artificial islands made out of wood, and then the result is this kind of landscape where you have the natural coast and where the people can really use this place very near the sea. In fact, what is very nice is that those places have defined some kind of social platform, social relations. So the size of these platforms generate or organize the size of the group that people can visit here. So this is something bigger than a bench and something small than a square. And then it generates some very interesting relations in this micro landscape that we define. Oh, well, in this case we did many studies because we wanted to, this is not a parametric design, but this is a modular design that should generate as much diversity as we could. And then in this case, you see we have here an hexagon, and in fact we have only two units. This is one fold unit, and this is one flat unit, and in each hexagon you can have three parts. So that's why with two very simple, let's say, units, you can make many combinations. Marta Malé was the one that found the final geometry of this solution, but there were many studies. We wanted also to try to interact with the landscape around, with the idea of the rock, with the small faults. And obviously what we are doing here is to promote that the people could be rest in front of the sea, taking the sun, etc. And here you can see the young people are sitting normally here on the top. The old people are lying here resting. Other people bring his chair and are sitting here. Other kids are playing around. So that means that this has been a very success project, even if it's a small intervention. Yeah, the sharing is a consequence of the digital economy and the digital culture. Every change of paradigm in the society is produced by structures that are more efficient by using more information. And this happened when the Romans killed the Greeks because they were better making roads, and I mean we can see many samples along the history. So when we start to develop this new master plan for the neighborhood called Sociopolis that I proposed to Valencia government, I invite different architects to make projects, and I start to do my own project, and I was thinking what we could add to architecture. And I have been working in the 90s in the digital environment, publishing CD-ROMs and doing different interactive projects. And at that moment, we had Napster, that was the first big company that was promoting sharing music and the peer-to-peer platforms. And I thought that we should try to bring this idea of sharing to the physical space, because in the digital space it's very easy to do, but in the physical space we should see how we do this. And then we were doing really diagrams about how to deal about this, how to share space, what means to make to share. And in fact, in this was the first model we did about the tower with different categories of sharing space inside this tower. And this tower was nearly like a physical construction of a diagram. The solution finally is that we discovered that we could do something, that the sharing space is possible, creating something between the public space and the private space. At that time, this idea of sharing was illegal because it was not regulated, but the good news is like 3 years later, the program for social housing in Spain allowed that 20% of the surface of an apartment. They were promoting small apartments, but then they say you can share 20% of your surface. They discovered that 20% of the people in Spain are living alone. In New York, 35% of the people are living alone. So it makes no sense to make big apartments for people living alone. And what I was thinking was, instead to make micro apartment, why don't we make a macro apartment with individual spaces and sharing spaces? The result is that, in fact, we did this project, but we are building right now one project that will be a building for university students in Gandia, in the south of Valencia, and this will be the first social housing with format of university residents based on the idea of these sharing apartments.
Right, right.